Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I've got the sound working now. Sorry about that. So I'm going to redo all of these videos with Karametra. It also gave me an opportunity to tweak the deck just a little bit. What I found was that Reality Spasm is probably the worst draw in the deck, although I mean occasionally it serves as a fog, which is nice. Like half the time you draw it, you're not sure if you have enough to untap everything. I'd rather just have something that's a set mana cost, so then I know how many I can BSZ for. So let me go back to the beginning, alright, because I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch those videos on silent before I took them down. Here's how this deck works. It's called Karametra. This is a purely creative deck. It does not contain any destructive elements. Shout out T-Woo. If you haven't read that article, you should. This deck does not do damage to your opponent. This deck wins by making your opponent, by being generous, by making your opponent draw his entire deck. Hold on, let me see if I can. Hold on. No, not quite. I want to line it up so that I am the card art. Bam! Blue Sun Zenith. I am the Zenith of the Blue Sun. And what this card does is makes you or your opponent draw X cards, and then it shuffles itself back into the library so you can draw it again. So the goal is to cast this for 45 or so and make your opponent draw his deck. How do we do that? We play Dictate of Karametra at opponent's end step, which we try to ramp towards, right? So the earlier we can get this done, the better. Otherwise, if we're doing it on turn 5, it's turn 6 kill, which is pretty slow in Modern, but it's fairly consistent. Like, if you can land this card, it's very hard to fizzle at that point. How does our combo generate mana? So we get these down and we're doubling our mana, and then we use untap effects like Early Harvest. Before I was using Reality Spasm, but I found it very cumbersome and like just annoying. So I've kept one as a Merchant Scroll target. So if we're missing an untap effect, we can find it with Merchant Scroll for Reality Spasm. And I've replaced it with Rude Awakening, which also gives us an alternate win con if we want to kill our opponent with our forests, but instead we can just use it to untap all the lands we control. So if I have a Dictate out and 5 or more lands, I'm creating mana with this spell. So now Rude Awakening and Early Harvest is how we're creating our mana. To get more mana in play, we have Utopia Sprawl, so when you're untapping, this gives you an extra one. Elder is there to ramp out lands. Search for Tomorrow is there to ramp out lands. Anticipate is there to find any of your missing pieces, so is Sleight of Hand. Elixir of Immortality is there for keeping you alive. Also, as you're thinning your deck by ramping out the lands, when you shuffle all of your non-land spells back into your deck, all of your cantrips and ramp spells, it really has quite, it amplifies the thinning effect. People always talk about, pros always talk about thinning being really marginal in terms of fetch lands and this kind of thing, but when you're shuffling back in all of the non-land spells and you've pulled out lands from your deck, every time you do that, you're way more likely to draw spells. And this kind of deck, you need to get like a critical mass of draw going so that you can grab everything. So once we get all the elements in play, we cast these 2 spells to ramp our mana, Blue Sun Zenith for lethal. If we don't have enough to get to quite lethal, we can Zenith ourself for basically X minus 5. So however many mana we have, now this makes the math a lot easier than this did. Now we know if we just keep back at least 5 mana, we can cast Rude Awakening or Early Harvest that we draw off our Zenith to continue the chain of going off. So that's why I think this card is a big improvement to the deck. I can't wait to try it out. Merchant Scroll is there as Blue Sun Zenith 3 through 6. Also can in a pinch get you and anticipate to search for something you're missing. Now it can target Reality Spasm if you need one of those. The deck is fairly hard to learn, and there's a lot of steps, and in the turn that you're going off, it goes crazy. Now the deck is very easily disruptible, so we're only going to play game ones with this because I'm not building a sideboard for it. It's too easily disrupted even with the sideboard. With the sideboard with this kind of combo, this is an all-in combo, you're really diluting the chances of going off, and your best chance of winning is by just going off as fast as possible, and this deck isn't really at a critical speed where it could do that against a competitive deck. Also, most competitive decks have disruptive elements like counter magic and discard or land destruction or other things that are going to make this strategy not good or not viable, right? But in terms of being a fun deck, hell yeah, I think it's fun to make 60 mana in one turn and have your opponent draw his entire deck. I think that's insanely fun. So if you want to have fun, this is a great online deck. I would never ever recommend playing this deck in person because there are let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 shuffle effects in the deck, and you can draw them multiple times. So you are shuffling your deck a zillion times with this deck. So in person, unless you're a poker shark, this is not a deck for you in person. So let's try to get a couple matches or game ones in at least. I'll make up for the lack of audio on the previous videos, and I also have another standard brew that I'm dying to record. Oh, and another modern one. So we'll see if we can get those in tonight too. I'll stay up as long as I can try. I'll get some of it done at least tonight, and maybe I'll do the rest tomorrow night. But